My daughter's father abandoned us when she was born and left me to be a single mother. Now, 4 years later, he shows up out of nowhere and wants to be a daddy. I, 33, female. I'm a single mother to a 6-year-old girl, and I've raised my daughter all on my own. She was born from a one-night stand with a now former friend, 37, male. We never got together, and he refused to be involved in my pregnancy or my daughter's first 4 years of life. I was stressed out emotionally because it's a big change, but I never asked for child support or forced him to be involved. I have enough income to send my daughter to a private school, and I'm perfectly fine on my own. The issue started when he reappeared from wherever he went and decided he wanted visitation, except he's not on my daughter's birth certificate, and the father is listed as unknown. He wanted to have that amended, but I said no, and that if he wants, the best he'll get is to meet her during outings with myself or my daughter's godparents. He agreed, but he's been constantly pressuring to get parental rights. The court already gave him a big fat no, unless he pays 4 years of child support, which with his income goes somewhere around $230,000 USD, and he hasn't paid a cent. My daughter doesn't even call him dad or recognize him as dad. She calls him Mr. I keep it very clean. I never bad-talked him, never made up stories. When she asked about her father, I used to say it was just the two of us. Even during court, the assigned CPS agent testified that my daughter had no affection or clear relationship with her biological father. Now, the main issue happened in a parent-teacher association meeting. He would say things like my family thinks or what is best for my family. I didn't agree with him, and I voiced my disagreement by saying my daughter has different needs, and those are a priority. He was clearly angry. After the meeting, there was a moment for teachers and parents to mingle and just talk about how the kids are doing. One of the teachers approached me to apologize, saying she didn't know my husband and I didn't like a project she was doing with the kids. I told her I had no husband and my daughter loved the project and wanted to be a part of it. The teacher then told me that my former friend was going around talking like he's my husband and he represents the family. I was livid, and I walked up to him and very loudly told him we needed to talk in private. In the parking lot, I told him we were not a family and that he either will respect that I am the only one who can make decisions about my daughter's education, or he won't be involved. He went on about being her biological father. Then I reminded him he had not paid a cent for the pregnancy, my daughter's needs, or even the private school my daughter is in. He hasn't tried to see my daughter since, which she doesn't mind at all, and I did ask her, by the way. I do feel a bit bad about what I said. Edit. I wanted to add this because the messages are driving me insane. He has the money to pay child support, but he chose not to pay. He was never prohibited from being involved. He had my phone number, and I sent him pictures and invited him to birthdays and other big celebrations, but he never came. Also, we are not in the U.S. Update. I'm going to preface this by saying my daughter's father, whom I refer to as Jeff, has never been my romantic partner. It was a one-night stand. I don't like people calling him my ex, since it makes it seem we had some kind of emotional attachment. He was never involved after I told him I was pregnant and actually wanted me to terminate the pregnancy. But I decided to raise my child alone, since I have enough money to raise her without child support. For the entire pregnancy and the first 4 years, Jeff was not in the picture. On my mother's recommendation, I did send him pictures and invited him to special events, but he always replied that he had no interest in my daughter. 2 years ago, he reappeared and began demanding parental rights. When I didn't do what he wanted, he sued and was told no, he was not getting parental rights. He was given the offer to pay child support, and then we can revisit giving him actual rights, but he has refused. He has the money, much more than me, but he refuses. I still offered to let him see my daughter in a casual manner, no child support needed, with the agreement that anything legal, medical, or educational will not involve him. He pushed the boundaries and we had a fallout. After that, we didn't hear from him for almost 6 weeks before he called to meet for Christmas. After much discussion, I agreed to bring my daughter over on the condition that my daughter's godparents could come. Thus, we went over for Christmas dinner, and that is when I found out Jeff is married and had never told his family he had a child. It was great to be judged by a bunch of strangers, but if I'm being honest, it was uncomfortable the entire time. I'm going to use fake names, but let's say my daughter's name is Katie. His wife kept calling my daughter Gabrielle, not the actual name she used, but it was that different from my daughter's name. The wife was also very physical, trying to pick up my daughter or parent her. I would block her or tell her to please let me deal with my child. The entire time she pretty much ignored me, but Katie didn't seem nervous, so I decided to just bide my time. I hit my limit when my daughter said she needed the bathroom, and this stranger went, "Oh, Gabby, you need the potty. Let mommy change you." My daughter hasn't worn diapers in a while now, and she's more than capable of going alone to the bathroom. I immediately told her to stay away from my daughter and that we were leaving. The woman started wailing that I was kidnapping her baby girl and tried to lunge at me. Her in-laws got in the middle and held her, consoling her and saying that we weren't leaving and for her to calm down as if she were the victim. At that point, I just glared at Jeff and told him he'd better explain, or I would be calling the police. He asked me to speak in private in another room and that I could just leave my daughter with his parents. No way that would ever happen. Katie's godparents took her with them, despite the wife having a full meltdown. Jeff and I spoke outside, and he explained that he and his wife recently lost a daughter. I'm not going to give specific details on that. All I'll say is it was sudden and nobody's fault. As I can only imagine, it had caused some psychological issues for his wife. Apparently, he had the brilliant idea that having Katie pass as their lost child would help his wife without telling me. That's why he wanted visitations and parental rights. He pleaded for me to leave my daughter with him for a little bit. I asked him what his plan was when his wife heals. His response was disgusting. "Well, I'll just send Katie back with you, and it will be just like before." I told him he was insane if he thought I would let him use my daughter like that. What his wife needs is therapy with a professional not feeding her delusions. I would not let that woman within miles of my daughter. He told me I was being cruel and didn't know the pain of losing a child. I agreed with him, but reminded Jeff that my priority is not his family. It's my child. What he and his family do to work through their grief has nothing to do with us. I also told him to call his lawyer because I am making sure he never has contact with my child. So that's what I'm bracing for. He's been blasting my phone since Christmas, but I can easily ignore him, and my daughter and I are doing a small travel vacation in the meantime. Update. Hey everyone, I decided to post a final update since I will be going silent for a long period. For those who didn't know, I'm currently dealing with my daughter's father and his delusions. He wants to use my daughter as a therapy doll for his wife, who recently lost a child. A lot of people were worried about my daughter and me, and I truly appreciate it. We're both safe. She's currently having a great vacation with her godparents, and I'm making my own arrangements to move on. My lawyer is working hard to keep everything in order. I know a cease and desist was his first action, and we are going for no contact. He says we have a solid case and hopefully this will be resolved relatively fast, and by that I mean a year or two. We did get a temporary restraining order, and it's only until our first court date, but it could be extended afterward. I haven't had direct contact with Jeff. He lawyered up too and tried to send a threat to take full custody. My lawyer laughed at it since his reasoning was parental alienation, except I have proof I tried for years to have him involved. Apparently turning in a few emails showing my attempts was enough to get them to change parental alienation to a different reasoning. But in all honesty, my lawyer is not worried. For now, I've decided after much thinking that moving is going to be necessary. It won't be something I can do on a whim, but I'll be looking into new houses within a month to hopefully move sometime this year. School will remain the same, but we will be speaking to the admin to make sure only certain people can pick her up. Part of that decision has been to hire a private driver. He's someone I absolutely trust and has worked for relatives in the past, so I'm very comfortable with the idea, and so is my daughter. Now I just have to make sure they don't go for fast food every day after school. All in all, things are not that scary right now. I have a good lawyer, good evidence, and my little girl is happy and healthy. So I'm just going to focus on working on things little by little. Because of the legal proceedings, I don't think I'll be posting any updates anytime soon. And to those sending me messages telling me I'm horrible for keeping my daughter from her father or telling me I shouldn't have had her in the first place, please kindly speak to the void. I'm too busy. Update. I had no intentions of making a new post, but today absolutely took the cake. Now for today, thankfully, I didn't have to deal with Jeff. Instead, he sent a priest to harass me at work. I'll be very blunt. I'm completely detached from religion. I'm not an atheist. I just don't really like the idea of the Catholic Church, which is the leading religion in my home country. I respect it, and most of my family is Catholic, so I have a detached respect for church officials. Today, I was doing some paperwork when I got a call about a priest asking for me. I didn't have any meetings scheduled, and a lot of times we get visits from clergy asking for donations or participation in events, so I figured that was it. I told the secretary to let him in, and things at first seemed rather polite, shaking hands, asking how things were, the usual chit-chat. Then the priest began talking about how it had come to his attention that I was a single woman with a child, and that apparently I lived the life of debauchery and hate, his words. I was taken aback and agreed I was a single mother, but I didn't see how I lived into debauchery and hate. The priest then went on about how he knew my daughter is prohibited from spending time with her father, and that I'm constantly sleeping around with men instead of living a godly life. He was worried and thought it would be best if I considered giving my daughter a chance to live with a proper family, rather than seeing me sell myself. Angry was an understatement. I did keep it civil simply because I was at work and I had no intentions of screaming at a religious man at work. I simply told him that my daughter was fine with me. She lived a safe and happy life, like personal affairs were my own, and that I had no intentions of sending her to another household. I told him that if there was nothing else, he should probably leave as I had other things to attend to. He then showed his hand, and that's how I knew it was Jeff's doing. The priest told me he didn't think my daughter would be a happy child with me, but her father was well respected in his church, and he knew he would raise a proper Christian lady. At that I laughed and simply said, no. I once again recommended he leave, and if he didn't, I would be calling security. He left, saying he would try to speak to me again when I'm not being hysterical. I told my secretary and our security not to let him into my office again and called my lawyer. I don't have audio, but we do have security footage of him walking into my office. Thank you again to everyone sending well wishes in my previous post. We are still working on that move, but school is back, and she's loving it. We still have that temporary restraining order against Jeff and his wife, and school officials know about it.